Well, we've made it. The true final episode of the Sonic series. It's been a wild ride, huh? Thanks for the time you've spent with this thing, even if it was just a simple misclick on a video, and... We've done this stuff before, let's end this with a bang! Welcome to the Shadow series. It's time to talk about Shadow Generations. And now, we've come full circle. I talked about Shadow Generations before in my very first Sonic-focused vid on this channel, but that was mainly me gushing without going in depth about everything. This is exactly why I'm making this, to talk in depth about everything I couldn't before, especially considering how much more time I've had to dwell on this game since. Considering this ranking, however, it's pretty clear that I still absolutely adore this thing to this very day. It takes just about everything from all modern Sonic games, and refines it to be the best it could possibly be, whilst introducing new ideas that only expand the potential gameplay and make it even more fun. I've been excited to get back to this game for absolutely ages at this point, so why waste any more time? Let's talk about how Shadow Generations is a glimpse into what we'll get real soon. One of the biggest claims to fame that Shadow Generations holds is the return of exceptional boost stages, and for good reason. A long 7-year wait after the disappointment of Forces allowed the level designers of this game to take their time to understand what makes Boost Sonic work so well, and it paid off and then some. That's not all, however, as we've also got a refinement of the open zones from Frontiers, alongside a whole host of amazing boss fights to consider. This is by far the most refined game the franchise has seen in a long while, so why not see why with those boost levels first? We begin this journey in Space Colony Ark Act 1, and the moment we saw footage of this place, we realized that Sonic Team were locking in with this one. This game is structured so that the first act of each zone is entirely in 3D, and the second is entirely in 2D, leading to a fantastic balance of scope across them all. This first level goes in right out of the gate, with many huge expansive locations to explore and find unique shortcuts in. Speaking of the shortcuts, one of this game's greatest new mechanics is chaos control. After defeating a few enemies or hitting certain capsules, you obtain the ability to stop time for about 6 seconds, despite the timer saying otherwise. These allow you to access secret routes in some cases, either by stopping an explosion before it happens, or with these green lines of energy that take you to specific locations. Each level has been carefully crafted to allow for extremely unique routes which wouldn't be seen in other games, as sometimes the conventionally slower routes may feature enough enemies to chaos control with and save some time in the long run. This level doesn't use it super well, only really being for saving bits of time, but it still adds a ton to routing and game feel. It is always fun to think outside the box and find simple ways to save little bits of time just about anywhere, and... Yeah, it wouldn't be a Shadow Generations video without mentioning this thing. In this level, and 2 others, Black Doom will rock up, give you a 30-second unskippable cutscene, and send you to the coolest place, Radical Highway. I can totally see and even agree with the complaints about these segments. They're far more automated than the actual bits of level, take away from what you were promised on the tin, and ultimately are a negative when it comes to the quality of these stages. I get all of that, but I can't hold it in me, I still enjoy these things. Well, this one not so much, it really is a Forces stage at its core, but the other two have elements to enjoy outside of the outstanding visuals. Plus, I think the story reason for this is far more justified than Sonic Frontiers' reuse of older zones in cyberspace. At least this segment doesn't completely ruin the stage for me, even if I can see myself quitting when I get here. Overall, this one is a fantastic starter, really encouraging you to get better and figure out the inner workings of this game. We'll do what we did with Sonic Gens here and focus on the 3D stuff before the 2D, so Rail Canyon. This is easily the most mid-tier stage of them all in this game, and I feel bad for even saying that. Seaside Hill was probably the best one in Sonic Generations, so I get that it probably wasn't going to live up to that, but rail grinding hasn't been as intricate as it was in Heroes since that game, really. Granted, they still found a lot of ways to incorporate fun shortcuts, like this one utilizing Chaos Control in a really cool way. Oh yeah, there's also Doom powers in this game, giving Shadow a unique ability to help with traversal. The first one is Doom Spears, and it's used pretty effectively here to deal with some Eggman's robots. There is a secret tech utilizing this thing, but we'll talk about it a bit later. Anyways, yeah, the more automated rail system from modern games doesn't really help this one in really any way. It's at least easier to not fall off, but surely a balance can be found, right? Moving on to the Doom Zone segment, this one is pretty interesting as it focuses on free-falling, which is barely ever seen ever. It can be fun here, and I like the giant Doom's Eye thingies you gotta spear. Oh, but the level continues after this one, unlike the others. It's a bit weird, but there's some cool stuff at this point, and I especially like the ending where you can land on the roof. Overall, despite its linearity and automated structure, there's still fun to be found here, making it like a 6 out of 10. Weakest one, by the way. Kingdom Valley. We all know about Kingdom Valley in this game. The original stage had some of the most unique and fun level design we've seen from an adventure-styled Sonic game, and they managed to translate that openness beautifully here. This stage focuses on 2 new Doom powers, Surf and Blast. Blast allows you to kick an enemy into the air and aim it around you, launching it and yourself to a far-off location, and Surf allows Shadow to surf along the water. This stage utilizes both powers in some insanely creative and interesting ways, like skipping this entire small combat segment with a single Doom Blast, or surfing along the water avoiding the attacks from a sudden Doom enemy, eventually revealing a Chaos path. In general, there's so many awesome ways to cause shenanigans within this stage, and it lasts 5 minutes on a casual run with no Doom Zone to speak of. This is also where I'll introduce that secret tech with Doom Spears, which I'll call Spear Stalling as I forgot the actual name for it and I'm lazy. Basically, spamming this move in the air with a lot of momentum will allow you to keep it instead of slowly losing it. This one technique allows for so much more speedrunning potential and fun, essentially being the equivalent of the homing dash from Frontiers, but even more accessible. It's so simple and fun to incorporate in your runs, and this one skip over these towers utilizing the momentum from the red rings is the best example of this thing in action. So yeah, Kingdom Valley lives up to just about everything everyone has said about it since release, being the best level the game has to offer with not much contest. At least the other contestants aren't bad, huh? Sunset Heights blew me away on my first playthrough, because of how clearly it shows the growth of understanding of level design between Forces and this game. The already existing areas are mostly the same, to be honest, but they just added more things to do, and the new mechanics allow you to traverse them in more engaging ways. Just comparing the opening between the two, there's a red ring, geysers are placed about alongside enemies, and there's a more dynamic camera that feels better than before too. The stage also has a really good balance of when you get Chaos Control. It feels great to use it at various points. The moments across the 2 bridges where the Death Egg robots fling rubble at you are so damn cool and fun, especially if you figure out the shortcut by freezing it with Chaos Control. I also really like the bits inside of the sewage system. They're quite linear, but feel great to plow through. Overall, it feels great to have a complete stage for this awesome concept. Okay, wait, this one is definitely the best one. I love aiming correctly in these long tubes, but it really would have been great to have done this in the actual level, right? Even disregarding all the waiting due to the cutscene midway through, it does feel quite sad knowing that only half of this thing is actually Sunset Heights, roughly the same amount of time as the original. Now, at least these 90 seconds are a lot more fulfilling than those older ones, overall making me really enjoy this one, definitely being the best stage featuring a Doom Zone. Kingdom Valley may be the best stage in the game, but I have to admit that there's something about Chaos Island that I personally enjoy a lot more. This one introduces the best Doom power if you know how to use it, Morph. It can be a bit difficult to understand at first, but figuring it out and using its momentum to soar across gaps is so satisfying. This level takes advantage of this thing to create some exceptional level design that I just can't get enough of. The first minute of this level is like ingrained into my brain because of how much I used to speedrun it. There's so many memorable moments. That one giant gap you go over with Morph, the indoors segment is so damn satisfying to fly across with spear stalling, the awesome shot with the volcano erupting, the climb up said volcano only a minute later, man, it's so good. The level may be about half the length of Kingdom Valley, yes, but I don't know. Maybe the smaller form factor of this stage appeals to me more, or I do just straight up prefer the level design. Something in me enjoys this level the most out of them all, and nothing will change that anytime soon. Or I'm just biased towards Frontiers, I have no idea. On to the final stages. Radical Highway, are you kidding me? Yeah, this is honestly one of the key reasons why I think the Doom Zones are quite misguided, even if I do have fun in them anyway. Spending time already in this place in previous zones kinda strips away the intrigue of what this one would be, which is sorta why I enjoy a first playthrough of these Generations games. Figuring out the zone they've adapted from what game is really fun, so this is kinda disappointing. I do have a confession, however. I did not connect the dots between the Doom Zones and Radical Highway at first. Yeah, when I saw that establishing shot of the highway mimicking the first shot of Shadow gameplay, that's when I realized what was up. Cut me some slack, dude, I wasn't a super fan yet. Anyways, that's a lot of bitching about what this is, but how's the actual level? Really good! Doom Wings are the final ability you unlock, and are essentially the super form of the game. There's different rankings for with and without them, they easily break some levels and are not the greatest in others, and they sap rings from you like a super form does. I believe, however, that Radical Highway was built with them in mind, as these stages are super fun with them. Doing a speed strat using a slightly different version of spear stalling is a blast, and balancing your usage of these across the level is addicting. There's no chaos control here either, so it's just you versus the timer. I adore Act 1, and the same goes for Act 2. Yeah, this zone is the only one with two separate 3D acts, and they are both really cool in unique ways. Act 2 features these segments where you gotta make your way over to these giant black arms enemies, and it's so goddamn fun and awesome looking. This is probably one of the hardest stages to get right, and that's what makes it and Sonic as a whole so good. Despite the somewhat disappointing nature of this place, I still think that it is really damn fun. Definitely some of the best stages in the game. Okay, I nearly forgot to do this one, but near the release of the third Sonic movie, a tie-in DLC was released for this game too, giving us one level and two extra challenges. Tokyo Act 1. This stage is a little conflicting, honestly. It has the same fun gameplay design as all previous ones, sure, but there's a lot more waiting midway through. This cutscene is really cool looking, sure, but it takes up so much of the runtime and it's a lot more noticeable than the Doom Zone transitions, because it doesn't lead to anything majorly different, just more Tokyo. I also don't think the gameplay itself is as good as the others for the most part, even if it is still quite fun anyway. The fact that they got Keanu Reeves to voice Shadow here is awesome, sure, but he does a weirdly lackluster job compared to the movie, it's really strange. I also think Shadow's model could look a bit better. There's a really cool introductory scene, the ending scene is also great, and the Westopolis remix completely remedies the fact that there are no Shadow 05 levels in this game for me. Yippee! That is kind of a crazy thing though, how the hell did they get away with that? Overall, I like the level. It's still fun to play, just a bit misguided in what makes the game super fun. And with all the 3D stages done, let's quickly cover the 2D ones. They actually surprisingly cooked really hard with these in some cases, so it's gonna be a bit more positive than you'd expect. Space Colony Ark Act 2 is a pretty solid start to these, even if the gravity tubes can be a bit jank. You didn't need to be that accurate to the original game, guys. You also get a taste of the Doom Wings here in the main story, but it does kinda automate the ending, unfortunately. Overall, not bad, but not something I'm coming back to often. Rail Canyon Act 2 is actually better than Act 1 in a lot of ways. It feels a lot more involved and pays closer attention to the strengths of rail grinding in the modern games. Chaos Control also gets heavy use here, making this one a surprising standout of the game. Of course, however, Kingdom Valley never stops cooking, as Act 2 here is kind of amazing. Wall jumping is unfortunately slow towards the beginning, but there's a lot of unique shortcuts with Doom Blast, creative skips featuring Chaos Control, and a greater sense of platforming than most others I think works quite well. The camera's absolute heat here too. Speaking of heat, Sunset Heights Act 2. I don't think anyone expected this one to be regarded as the best by the community, but none of us are complaining. There is constant adrenaline here, with masterful routing around chaos control, button presses left and right all over the place, and even a cool interaction with one of the Death Egg robots at the end. It would have been cool to see more of that, sure, but I think it has merit as a jump scare at the end. Oh, and the sewage segment is a blast, and Doom stuff in 2D is shockingly fun, and the homing attack pathways are back. God, it's a great stage. I just kinda suck at it. Chaos Island Act 2, whilst being a stage I'm far better at, unfortunately falls off a little from the past few. It's the layout that's the problem here. Doom Morph in 2D has a ton of potential for crazy skips due to its momentum, but I don't think they went all the way with it like they did for Act 1. It has its moments, like skipping this boring gondola ride with a precise jump, but it's one of the weaker ones, sadly. Guess which one I've speedrun the most? And that is all of the levels. As you can very clearly see, the Generations formula rarely misses. There's only one kinda disappointing stage in this game, and I'd still call it a 6 out of 10. The team behind this entry were clearly able to craft absolutely everything with these stages as carefully as possible, to make them as fun as possible to play, especially on a first playthrough. This is one of, if not the smoothest game in the franchise on its first run-through. A game where it's basically impossible to rage at due to its sheer consistency. As I said before, however, we're still not done with the gameplay, as there's still the crazy cool open zone that makes up the world map to cover. This will be a lot shorter than the Frontiers open zone talk, but it's clear that this game has taken feedback into account and has created something a lot more unique and interesting to explore. It probably helps that there isn't 3 2/3 of zones to make, but hey, I'm sure they'll bring this across for the next game. Surely, the environmental design is far better. Instead of placing all the interesting features above the world, it's actually on it now. From this giant palace area to this underground cavern, there's a lot to explore and experience. The progression system of the game is the same as Generations, so that unfortunately means that most collectibles have taken a hit in terms of usefulness. Most things are just there to fill out an artwork collection, music collection, or lore collection. And whilst I do really love this system, making these more tied to the gameplay again would definitely be ideal. I can see why they did this, of course, but it's definitely something to consider with the next game. At least the challenges placed around Whitespace are still super fun, definitely require more effort than before, and can become kinda tough in the late game. There's also a bolt collecting mission from Orbot and Qbot, which ends in a gag. I mean, that's probably the best reward that could have been obtained from them, but still, it's fun to do, but the map is weirdly unhelpful. There's no pins, you can't move around, the zoom in is barely helpful. This is kind of important for 100%ers, guys. They don't even mark where everything is at a point in the game. You just have to look up a map and pray you find the last bolts you need. It's not terrible, it's pretty simple to find everything, but Frontiers' map is so simple and effective to where this is kinda whiplash. Overall, however, this is a great refinement of what Frontiers had environmentally, and I only hope that they keep this stuff up in the next game. And now we reach a segment I've been waiting to get to for so damn long, the bosses. Shadow Generations has some of the best boss fights in the series, combining the insane spectacle of Frontiers' Titan fights with far more compelling gameplay. Up first is the Biolizard, and this one is a super solid opener. It adapts all of its classic attacks whilst creating an entirely new phase for its second half, which was super awesome to see on that first playthrough. Obviously the jank from the OG is now gone, which is a huge relief, but this one definitely feels the most like a series of scripted events compared to the others. Still though, it's super fun. Metal Overlord is absolutely the fan favorite these days, and for good reason. It is absolutely the one made with speedrunning in mind the most, as there's so many ways to deal additional damage to the big guy to skip longer segments of the fight. There's a tennis rally segment, 2 ways to end it if you hit this chaos control. It absolutely deserves to be up there as a top 10 Sonic boss fight. It's not my favorite, however. This dude is. You bet your ass I was popping the heck off when Mephiles was revealed in that one trailer. And this fight doesn't disappoint in any way. It uses Doom Morph and the Purple Sludge in really interesting ways, there are still many ways to do additional damage to the dude, and the narrative of the fight is absolute heat. It's a vengeful god, doing anything in its power to be restored to the timeline, but he fails. Despite the fact that the gameplay isn't necessarily as strong as Metal Overlord, I still have the most fun in this one anyway. And now we talk about the final fight, Devil Doom. If this isn't absolute cinema, I don't know what is, dude. Phase 1 plays a lot like Metal Overlord, so it's a blast like that fight. Phase 2 is a little rough on your first time, however, because of the quirks behind Morph. Once you get it though, it is just as fun as the first phase. This is not where it ends, however, as Black Doom powers up even more to become Neo Devil Doom. The rest of the fight is about flying across the psychedelic Radical Highway, and there's so many different attacks to see and avoid, so many satisfying hits to land, the final cutscenes are genuine cinema. Oh man, it's good. Finally, a good goddamn final boss, and a great selection of bosses throughout too. Only Biolizard feels like a step below, but even that's only a small step. Every one of these feels so good to play, and even have genuine potential for speedrunning, making this game probably have the best selection of fights in the franchise? I haven't tallied the numbers, so don't quote me on that though. Anyways, there is one more thing I've forgotten to mention until now, and that is the challenges. These return from the OG Generations game, and they are, once again, decent distractions from the open zones and main stages. They tend to focus on either specific mechanics introduced in the stages, or the Doom powers unlocked around that stage's playtime. You actually have to do them all in this game as opposed to Generations, but there's only 2 for each stage alongside harder versions unlocked in the late game which are optional, so they feel far more consistently designed here. There's barely any tedious ones, there's always a way to save time, and some could fit right into the main stages and not feel out of place. Some personal favourites include Death Egg Robot Panic, Destroy Targets with Chaos Spear, and Crossover with Doom Morph. I don't really have a lot to say about these unfortunately, but that's all because I play the main levels so much that I never really consider these bonuses for replays. I know that it's the same for Sonic Gens too, but it's a lot more prevalent here for some reason, maybe because of there simply being less. Oh well, it just means that I'm pleasantly surprised whenever I reach these, which is still really cool. And that just about does it for the gameplay. This game easily has some of the most refined gameplay the franchise has ever seen, which was absolutely a contributing factor for its reception at launch. Combining this with Sonic Gens was one of the best moves Sonic Team could have done, as no matter what anyone likes about Sonic, they'll most likely be satisfied with what they get. Well, unless you somehow only like the adventure games like a snob/J. Anyways, that's not the only reason why this game popped the hell off, is it? Of course, no Shadow Generations discussion is complete without mentioning Shadow Generations continues the uphill trend of really damn good stories and Sonic titles that started with Frontiers, and man did they cook here. Unlike that game, which focuses on a collection of characters, this one prioritizes Shadow himself, going in depth about how he reacts to struggles and how he overcomes them. I'll probably focus on very specific moments here, as I don't want to just copy the really great recent video from the PJ show, so let's just start gushing. Well, I guess not yet. As with Knuckles and Frontiers, this game got a tie-in animation to lead up to the release, and oh man is it good. Shadow Dark Beginnings nails absolutely everything it sets out to do within its 13-minute runtime. Amazingly choreographed fight scenes, a fantastic score that only adds to the excitement, and genuinely some of the best emotional moments I've seen in a piece of Sonic media. We got 3 episodes that eventually released together with a little bonus at the end, so let's quickly cover them. Episode 1 is honestly my favourite of the 3. It paces itself amazingly, with an extremely wholesome bonding scene between Shadow and Maria from the past, that naturally leads into this exceptional fight between Shadow and Emerald from Sonic Battle, elite character poll. We finally get a bit more insight into how Maria's illness actually affects her, as it's more so been something we've just had to believe before. The blend of 2D and 3D visuals is stunning, and seeing Maria comfort Shadow just touches my soul, dude. Oh, and the second half is goddamn masterful, showcasing some insane psychedelic imagery representing the chaotic, dark thoughts of Shadow's mind. And the payoff at the end revealing Maria's demise and Black Doom's influence just ties everything together in one of the most beautiful bows I've ever witnessed. I watched this when it came out, and it immediately gripped me, and let me understand how special these animations and this game would end up being to me. On to episode 2, which also begins with a flashback to 50 years ago, and a surprising lore drop. Outside of Commander Abraham Towers being racist, of course, it shows us that even back then, Shadow and even Maria knew that Gerald used Blackarm's DNA to create him, which is surprising. Whilst this episode may be the weakest overall to me, it definitely has the best moment between Maria and Shadow, alongside some of the best direction too. The lava's eye covers one of Shadow's in the reflection of the glass, his surroundings fade away as he's doom posting, until Maria gives him more hope, and oh, it's so good. And we haven't even gone to the second half, where Team Dark is so unbelievably back, dude. Also, Samurai Egg Pawns from Colors? Another elite ball knowledge moment. Oh, and Rouge and Omega are exceptional here too. I can't get enough of this line.
Hold that thought.
I call dibs.
Again, this may be the weakest and shortest of them all here, but it still cooks insanely hard and leads on to episode 3, and this one goes places to say the least. I like that this one doesn't begin with a flashback and instead focuses on the present, as the show definitely understands by this point that we get how important Maria was to Shadow. Anyway, this one fucks! From insanely hard lines uttered by the characters, to maybe some of the best action yet, it's impossible to choose though, it goes insane throughout its whole runtime. They give Shadow the most aura of them all here, and yet he still saves the guy in the Blue Falcon as he actually values life. 2010s, I love good characterization! Oh, but we can't talk about this episode without the way it ends. Abraham Towers comes along to confirm the launch of the rocket to the space colony Ark, and talks to Rouge about Shadow's persistence. They say that there's only one person who can actually talk him down, and we all know who that is. We cut to Shadow, alone in the rocket, thinking about Maria. Not about what actually happened though, about what he wishes could have happened. It shows Maria on Earth with him, and he starts to panic before coming to his senses and focusing on his mission. The song Without You blares throughout, and it pans up to the pissed on moon, making for a truly exceptional finale. This is the best moment of this entire miniseries, by far, and I get teary-eyed every time I rewatch it. Overall, this series is even more of a must-watch than the Knuckles short, giving us so much more depth into the scenario of the game, and setting up what the main conflicts and themes will be. With exceptional animation and style, a wonderful score, and brilliant voice acting to boot, there is no reason why you shouldn't check this thing out right now. Oh yeah, there's also a game we've got to talk about now, let's do that. Again, I won't do the exact plot synopsis I usually do, and just focus on the characters and the specific moments, so it only makes sense to begin with Shadow, right? This game, as I said before, entirely revolves around his past, taking important moments of his life and bringing them back for him to face once more. Space Colony Ark, the place he grew up with Maria. Rail Canyon, the place that began his existential crisis about if he truly is himself. Kingdom Valley, the resurrection of Mephiles, even if he doesn't remember it. All the bosses are a reflection of himself in a way. The Biolizard was the first attempt at an ultimate life form, Metal Overlord is another being which considers itself perfect, and Mephiles is a reflection on what he would have become if he gave into his darker side. Shadow stories tend to be about his past, I know, but this one more so takes the general idea of 06's Shadow and adds on to it. What if Shadow came into contact with the exact things he's put behind him? A great example of this is with the Doom powers. Each new one obtained clearly makes him feel more and more pain, and they connect directly to him the more powerful the ability is. Spear and Blast are projectiles, Surf is a separate entity, Morph covers his entire body, and Wings protrude directly from him. This shows how his connection towards Black Doom grows throughout the game, no matter how desperate he is to stay away from this side. I also love how amazing his interactions with basically everyone are. His pure hatred towards Black Doom, his complete shell shock when meeting Maria and Gerald again, and all the extra characters you can find like Big and Omega. It is truly one of the tightest written Shadows we've seen. No notes, really. Let's now focus on some personal favourite moments of the game, like this scene towards the end. Black Doom arrives for some more rage baiting and really gets to Shadow this time, because of how close he's gotten to Maria and Gerald this time. He seems like he's giving in to the rage and hatred that Black Doom wants, but Maria steps in just like Dark Beginnings. She explains why Shadow's name is Shadow. Without light, there's only darkness, but a shadow will tell you where to find the light. After this, Shadow swiftly runs away, presumably for contemplation's sake. Not only is that line just amazing, and I love the detail that Maria named Shadow in the first place, but the cutscene itself is directed so well. Light rains shine behind Maria after her conversation. The vignette grows during Shadow's crash out and fades when she calms him down. Oh man, they cooked here. Not only here, mind you. These are some of the best looking cutscenes we've seen in a long time from this franchise. It definitely helps that there are less here than Frontiers, plus the fact that the story's a lot less ambitious, but the animation is so damn smooth, the voice acting's brilliant, and the designs for the humans are the best we've seen. Remember, we haven't seen humans in HD since Unleashed, and whilst I do think those look nice and fit the cartoony look of Sonic well, this blend of realistic proportions and cartoony aspects is definitely what should be done moving forward. This scene is goddamn brilliant, pretty much taking everything great about the narrative into one single defining moment. There's still more where that came from though, so let's press on. After Shadow gets his Doom Wings, white space starts to change a lot. A red, malice-fueled atmosphere permeates, and a new pathway to the black moon in the sky opens up. Making your way down to the beginning of said pathway leads to this masterful moment where Shadow gets ready to face Black Doom, taking complete control of his powers. A golden glow surrounds him as he powers up, and he states that he's letting go of this destructive anger. He will fight for what he loves, for Maria's wish for everyone to have a chance to be happy, and he lets out a reassuring smile as he walks away to end this, once and for all. This is a completed Shadow, one who's experienced so much and knows who he's fighting for. It is a brilliant moment that is only elevated by the ending cutscene after the final boss. As the white space starts to deteriorate, Shadow takes the time to make his way over to Gerald and Maria. They then start to disappear because of the fixed time anomaly, and Shadow starts to panic. He doesn't want to move on, so he thinks of stopping time to stay with them for longer, but Maria stops him. She reminds him that he has friends in the now, who need help just as much as they did. If fate draws them apart, she'll always be in his heart. Shadow runs away before seeing them truly go, and rushes by Rouge, who feels a tear fall on her cheek, ending this game in the most bittersweet way possible. Everything about this scene is done goddamn exceptionally. From the more subtle details like Shadow shaking when Maria is close to him, to the grand and emotional score complementing every moment wonderfully, leading to what is definitely one of the most tightly written stories the franchise has seen. It may be quite short and have a lot of similar themes to previous Shadow stories, but man does it execute said themes the best out of them all. Yeah, this pretty much is my favourite Shadow story. Only 06 really comes close in my eyes, as I do have problems with all previous ones. Adventure 2 doesn't pace itself the best, Heroes is a bit too basic, Shadow 5 is all over the place, and yeah, I basically don't have any problems with 06. I think it's the way they went above and beyond here that truly gets to me. The cutscenes look so good, it ties in with Sonic Generations pretty much flawlessly, and overall, accomplishes everything it sets out to do. It's pretty much the quintessential Sonic experience. Refined gameplay that isn't a challenge to have fun in, a compelling story to follow along that doesn't take up too much of your time, and paints a wonderful future for this franchise which we haven't seen in a while. There is only one final segment to get to now, and we all know what it is these days, so let's talk about Shadow Generations has a really solid soundtrack, and that's that. I wouldn't say anything here is truly outstanding, but we've got a good few great remixes to talk about, so why don't we just play them? Space Colony Ark is intense and exciting, just what you want out of a game where you play as Shadow. It feels like it fits into Shadow 5's soundtrack really well, despite being a remix of Final Rush from Adventure 2. Kingdom Valley Act 1 is a very cool interpretation of the original, even if it doesn't do anything too crazy. It at least hits those iconic moments really well. Sunset Heights Act 1 is an evolution of the original song, much like the stage itself. From better synths to more instruments in general, there is a lot to love about this version, especially if you weren't a fan of the OG. Chaos Island Act 1 is a personal favourite, taking the more relaxed and ambient motifs of Frontiers and going wild with them. It has stuck out since that first playthrough. Radical Highway Act 1 is such a unique remix, never utilising that iconic motif, and only hinting at it, making for a strangely unsettling track. Doom Zone, however, is all about that original style, whilst adding its own twists and turns when necessary. Definitely a personal favourite version of the song, and I love how each version of the zones begins at a different part of the song. The Biolizard remix may not top the exceptional original to me, but it does go for a more bombastic atmosphere that I still love anyway. It also fits the new phases really well too. Mephiles not only got a remix of one of his fight themes, he's got two. I'll focus on the second one here, as it gets right to the point and is as delightfully sinister and dramatic as I remember. I said this before and I'll say it again, the Westopolis remix is everything I could have hoped for going into this game, and even if I had to wait a few extra months for it, it was so worth it. I never ended up mentioning anything about it because it wasn't really relevant to the discussion, but the Collection Room's theme is excellent. It continues the trend of surprisingly amazing lo-fi tracks in Sonic games that began with fishing vibes. Give me more. And finally, even if it was only made for the animated shorts, Without You hits me in the feels every time I listen to it, and I basically consider it the main theme of the game at this point. That is everything about the music. Again, it's not one of my favourite Sonic soundtracks ever, but it has definitely got some great stuff in there. Comparing it to Sonic Generations, I think I may prefer the level theme remixes there, but the other songs not tied to the levels are where Shadow Generations shines. Definitely check some songs out when you can, it's a great listen. And that's all. I think it's time to end this video and this series. Overall, Shadow Generations may not be as long or ambitious as Frontiers, but it is a glimpse into what Sonic Team can do if given the right time and resources to make something as complete as possible. There are some small issues here and there, like the Doom Zones interrupting gameplay, but the quality of absolutely everything else managed to leave a mark on most people who played it upon release. 97% of overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam is something almost unheard of, and those are stats from extremely recently. We can expect the next game to have this standard of quality moving forward, and not be afraid, because everything else recently has been great. Frontiers, this game, Crossworld, You're Controversial, all of the major releases have popped the hell off. We just need that one entry that brings all the quality together. I am so excited for the near future of this series, and that's it. I have now officially talked about every mainline Sonic game, or at least what I consider to be every mainline entry. However, one thing you may have noticed in the more recent episodes of this series is that my ranking is somewhat inaccurate now. I'd place Shadow 05 higher, Heroes lower, and I don't want an inaccurate ranking to be throughout this series. So, let's do one last video, why don't we? I've planned this from the very beginning, don't worry, but there will be one more video giving my final, current ranking of these games, and I'll try to make it shorter than usual, but we can only hope. See you then, goodbye.